Hi, I'm Susan Kennard, and welcome to the Spiritual Awakener podcast. This is a podcast where I get to interview and speak to really cool, interesting people. And this series, we're going to go deeper into who we truly are on a mind, body, soul level. So I can't wait to introduce my next guest, who's become kind of a bit of a friend of ours because he helps us as a family and as a friend, and he is really, really knowledgeable. I love talking to this guy. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Tell us your name, my love.
Hi, I'm Grahame Martin, and it's
Grahame
good to see
Martin,
you again,
everyone.
Susan.
Pardon? Good to
It's
see you
good to
again.
see you.
Thank you. Yeah, no, we are. I love Grahame because he's kind of like a bit of an icon in our family because he is so amazing at looking at you. And I'm not kidding this, right? I know you may be listening to this on audio across iTunes, but we're recording this on video. So if you're seeing it on video, he actually has this look about him where he can see straight through you, which when you first meet him can be a bit disconcerting. But when you get to know him, you know he has this incredible power. So Martin, tell us about you.
Well, first of all, that's an interesting thing because quite a few teenagers, children of people I've worked with and treated, often don't want to see me, funny enough. They go, okay, I'm not going to go and see that guy. So I don't realize I'm doing it. For me, the thing about perception, and this, we all are in this same boat. We are who we are, and perception is a very individual thing. So we just do what we do. Obviously, along the years, I've learnt not tricks, but just ways in which to be with it in order for things to jump out of the people I'm looking at. So actually, and when you actually break that down, there isn't any time and space involved, which is the fun bit, but it takes a couple of years to get to that point where you realize actually you have to suspend yourself in time and motion for you to, well, in America, they would call me a reader. And whenever I'm there, that's what they call me.
But a lot of my listeners are American. A lot of my clients are Americans. They'll be hearing that saying, yeah, that's what we would say.
Yeah, that's what they call me. And but to me, I mean, for me, it's very interesting because I don't know another way of being. So although we all learn about our own perception and no one's greater or lesser than anyone else. So we've all got our own perception and we've got our own abilities within that. And then we've got this phenomenal ability, which is the connection between the pituitary, the pineal, and the hypothalamus, which we've all got, which obviously goes, there's many ancient communities, the Egyptian epoch, for instance, which raved about this connection. And we should.
What would you call yourself? Just to say to people, you know, I know we call you who you are, your name, but what would you call yourself?
Well, that's quite interesting because I was dropped into being, first of all, trained as a homeopath and literally dropped because I was going to be a pop star. So I was in a band and we were all doing this, and I was literally doing a gig, and I used to share the vocals with someone, the lead vocals, and the other woman was doing the lead vocals at the time. Her name was Benna McCartney, if anyone wants to look her up, and we did quite a lot of music together. And I then looked out to the audience, and something hit me that made me go and turn down my amplifier of the instrument I was playing. Wow. And that was it. I walked away from it and then landed into homeopathic college.
My goodness, that's just, hold on a minute. So you're just about to play, let's just set the scene. You're just about to play.
No, we were actually playing. We'd done about 3 or 4 songs, and that was it for me of that particular gig. That was, and it wasn't a conscious decision. It was like I was in something that moved me literally. And placed me somewhere
people
else.
listening to that, you know, that's almost like some people might say it's like an inner knowing when something is right or when something is wrong. So whether you're just awakening on your journey or whether you already know who you are, truly living your mission, then you get this sense, don't you, where it's coming through you. And some people call it the God source. Some people call it your inner guidance, don't they? But you had a real...
Well, I've never had epiphanies, as it were. When my biggest, probably, I know everybody talks about, you know, Eckhart and other people have talked about this moment. I've never had one of those. But what I did do is roundabout, I was on a double-decker bus at the age of about 5 or 6.
Yeah.
And I realized that what I was seeing, I didn't really realize at that point that it was very different from anyone else. But what I did see on that bus shook the very core of me. And I was very young, and it also terrified me.
What was that? What did you see?
I saw what I see now, really. But I've never not seen, this is why I'm always very, very honorable around every person's perception. Everybody's perception is so important to them because we're all in our own reality.
Yeah.
And then when that extends outwards, we are in fact our own reality. You know, everything we actually create through ourselves. So if the more those 3 glands, when they're working together, that's what they do. And we all have that. We've all got the ability. So when I was of that age, what I was doing, something hadn't closed that down for me. So it wasn't a case of me suddenly getting enlightened or something else. I was confronted at a very early age with the diagnostic tool of my perception. And it was, okay, what does this mean? And I've had quite a few people that have said, you know, and I've been to some very, very enlightened people that have said, well, that usually leads to somebody not being able to cope and, you know, either dying or killing themselves or da da da.
Wow.
But for me, there was always a great sense of being held. And that's why I'm saying what happened during that music gig was just another extension of that. I was picked up and plonked somewhere else. And then when I started learning homeopathy, I was learning all these other things, other ways of healing, other ways of actually using, which we all do,
that's
using
what
our
we did.
perception.
Yeah, that's what we do. It's a collection, right, of all of those experiences. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
So within that collective, the wonderful thing about that is, I'm not a big fan of gurus, for instance, because I always, every time I've looked at the outer wall of our reality and what consciously we can understand, it's an ever expanding universe.
Yeah.
We're in a process of moving and understanding and seeing what reality is, because it's our reality. And it's interesting what's going on in the world at the moment, because there's obviously a huge fight to tell every individual what reality is.
Yeah.
But
you feel sometimes like there's, and maybe if you're listening to this and you feel you're thinking about this and you're thinking about the world, well, it is one way, but the way I see it, Grahame, is that our vibrational match, this is my language, but our vibrational match is what we see as a reality in our external world, right? Yeah. And depending, and no judgment with this, but depending on your vibrational match will depend on what you see as a reality.
Yeah. You've got, okay, so we've got a way to connect with the higher planes. Okay, the whole point of having,
my favorite subject.
Well, we've basically got 7 main chakras. Now, one of the things that I work with, I do a lot of courses and I write books on, is the Western chakra system. So I've over the years discovered that the Eastern chakra system doesn't work for a lot of Westerners. They actually need, and there is a Western chakra system, and it's slightly different from the East, and it works slightly differently because Westerners often, and this isn't a cultural or racist thing, this is an evolution of the planet.
Yeah.
So consciousness is quite interesting on our planet, but what we all have in common is a phenomenal way to connect with the higher planes.
Yeah.
And with those, within that higher planes, the first port of real call that we come to is the astral plane. So when you talk about a vibration, to me, that resonates as the astral plane. So what the astral plane does is it reflects consciousness in a physical way.
Yeah.
So we think with physical brains, everything that we need to understand in this illusion that is physicality that we've incarnated into is physical. So when we go to a place which isn't Earth, but is a reflection of true consciousness, that place has to reflect its physicality. And we do this every night. We go there when we dream. So we go to sleep, our body repairs, we have to shift off and leave it to its thing. But in that process, we also get to absorb consciousness.
Yeah.
Of,
and party as well.
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
Party. Because we can't do much of that at the moment. So we have to do it.
That's it. That's it's like all those bits that allow us to function as healthy as what we're here to do, because that's a really important thing. We incarnate with a mission.
Yes, I totally agree. I totally agree. We don't just come, do we, as this physical being? Oh, well, let's just live for a bit and work and pay the bills and then we die. That isn't how it is. And I think at the moment there's a huge amount of fear of dying, isn't there?
Yeah, oh yeah.
You know, and this is what I feel is driving. Great link here, because this is what's driving people to find a holy grail. You know, but actually the holy grail is us. We are the holy grail.
Well, you've got two wills. So you've got the will of, say, let's use it, the universe. And, well, you know, it's an arbitrary word, but let's just use it for the moment to illustrate our point. And then we've got our self-will. So we live within that duality because we're in physicality. And within that, the more we bury ourselves down into our physical will, the more we're going to get buried into our base, which is our base center, where all our primal fears hang out. And the interesting thing a lot of people don't understand about our base chakra or our base center is it has to be flexible. It really does have to be flexible. Everyone thinks it's a big bit of concrete that we drill our roots firmly into the ground. Well, that's the plant. The plant has no decision where it's going to be. The seed lands, the roots go down. We do. So within our base, we actually need flexibility. If we don't, what happens is we hide in our base too much. The other side of that is we don't get in our base because we're too scared to actually be here.
So we're sort of out of our body in a sense. We're kind of like floating around and we're kind of not secure. Yeah.
That's exactly it. So we've got to have a base where we have this relationship with it. And if you're going to have that relationship, it works around trust.
So if you're listening to this and you feel, you know, have a feel into this, do you feel that you're safe in this world, or do you feel like you're unsafe in this world? That would be a key, wouldn't it? Absolutely. What other symptoms, don't like the word symptoms, but what other things do you feel if you're not grounded in this world and connected? What other things would you say?
Well, if you're not, first of all, there are two parts to this. You can be too grounded. So, you know, that person that has all their money in insurance in a bank, has, you know, every form of alarm and protection, goes out into the world and tells everybody it's not safe, you can't trust nature, You know, when I went to college, there was a guy called Robert Davison, amazing guy. He's not with us anymore. And the first thing he said to us is, why do you think the world outside that window is out to get you? And this is the thing that when we incarnate, we have to grasp. We have to put our hands around trust in this life, because it's a very powerful thing. And what can be cut off is with people like that. And there is a lot of fear around at the moment that's creating this kind of scenario. What's cut off is this connection with whatever we see as a higher influence, be it
that's the key.
or whatever.
I think that's the key, because when we shut ourselves off or feel cut off to that higher influence or equal influence that is part of who we are, we could say, to that equality of who we are, and we forget who we are, then that's when, this is when I see it with people, is they've shut down that ability to know and to trust their own selves as this incredible being of light having a human experience. That's what I help people with a lot, is that, you know, you have all the answers. I'm just supporting you on that journey on the train. You know, you have all the answers because they have the answers better than we do. You know, we have our own answers, don't we?
But you know where that comes from? That comes from your heart. Okay, you've got a big heart, a very loving heart. I can say this because I know you. And all roads lead to Rome. All of this, whatever we look at on any angle, ends up as to our hearts, where our soul resides, where what we put ourselves into, the expression, what are you going to put your heart into?
Yes, your heart and soul into. It's an expression.
Yeah, right? Absolutely. So when you see another person who needs help, your instinct, because of your heart, is to help them.
Absolutely.
Because of your skill base enables them to reconnect. For you, it's an instinctual thing to do. You know, we don't have jobs advertised with this written on. Okay, so we have to trust in the universe as to what. Hence, I was picked up from doing a gig and dropped into the life that I was meant to lead. And lots of people can lead their true life by having the trust to do it. But people like yourself, you're needed to kind of oil the workings, you know, keep the.
And I dropped out of so I wasn't in a band, although that is another story, when I was 18. But I actually, it's another part of my life. I actually stepped out of the closet, but the spiritual closet. And that was 12, 13 years ago, because it was time to own and not hide behind. And maybe if you're listening to this, you might be hiding behind the person that you thought you should be. And I was a psychologist, psychotherapist. I still am, but, you know, I hid behind the practice in London and all this stuff. And I think we have to now authentically step out of that closet, whichever way that happens for you. But step out now and say, do I trust, and this is maybe quite controversial, but do I trust the narrative, or do I trust my own narrative? And I suppose that would be the key, I think, now for people. You know, we're recording this on the 23rd of February 2021. Incredible week, actually. You know, coming up to a full moon in Virgo. You know, we're in Pisces. We're really in this beautiful spiritual aspect of where we are in the world. And this is a really good time for people to listen to this and just feel in your soul when you listen to this, oh, maybe I do have the answers, and maybe I can make the choices for myself, and not necessarily listening to myself or Grahame, but listening to yourself, I feel, is the key. Yeah, go on, Grahame. So if someone came to you, and what kind of things, I mean, I know from my perspective what you've done to help us as a family, but give some examples that people might feel that they could come to you and be helped.
Well, primarily I work around blocks. So it took me a little while through the years where I was first learning homeopathy, and then I was learning some other things, what we all do essentially is deal with energy, all of us. It doesn't matter what job you do. You know, if you're a bricklayer and you build a house, you're dealing with energy, gravity. You're dealing with the solidity of the bricks. You're dealing with forces that are trying to basically push the walls out and the roof to go in. It's whatever job we're in. There's no judgment. We're all dealing with energy, and what it boils down to for me within that is, okay, my first port of call is my perception, which is both visual and audio. So I then have to work around what's I'm being told without judgment. And the without judgment is really important, because it's part of the craft you have to learn. Because judgment comes through our own personal insecurity.
Absolutely.
It's built around
someone else, right? If you judge yourself. Absolutely.
So many years, I mean, I've been doing this 25 years, but in the beginning, when I first started doing this, I was very insecure about one simple thing. And that was when someone walked through the door, if I would see anything. Now, that's me putting my insecurities in the way of what is something that naturally happens. So you have to, unfortunately, learn your craft to a certain extent. There are elements of, you know, understanding. We think with a physical brain. So you have to understand the conscious thing that you do without that getting in the way. Now, one of the things that I home in on very quickly is the blocks. We've all got them. Before anybody makes any judgment about me or anyone else, I would never walk around and say I haven't got blocks like everyone else, because we've incarnated to get out of them.
That's the point of being here, right?
Exactly.
We wouldn't be here, would we, if we were like, I often laugh about this and say, imagine if we had this archway and we could just step through this archway and go, okay, just like a car wash, just clear off all of the dust and everything that I don't need from all the lifetimes I've ever lived, and the childhood rubbish as well. Oh, okay. Oh, I'm not here anymore. So that would be, and I think, you know, Chiron in our chart in astrology, is our wounded part, isn't it? That's really cool. You know, if you think about all the wounded parts that, you know, you might be listening to this thinking, well, I don't want to look at my wounded parts, but those are the best bits, because those are the bits that once you are acknowledging them and healing them, then as Grahame calls them blocks, they are your blossoming, you know, they are your aspect of yourself in the world and how you can truly serve. Because I don't know about you, Grahame, but I think it's all about service. Without sacrifice, but service.
It is, but the identification of who you're serving is one of the biggest explorations that humanity is in. And again, there's no judgment around that. You have to honor everybody's individual perceptual answer to that, because it's their own perception. And
it can be anything, but it's service in a way, isn't it?
It is, absolutely.
Being at home with your children, you are in that service. Being out, you know, walking along sweeping streets, you are in that service. It doesn't matter what it is, but you are in service.
And humanity has a way of expressing that. And in that expression, when we look at blocks, it's how we are traumatized, it's how we are abused, it's how we are attacked within the process of not just this life, but our past lives. And where you talked about Chiron relates to the thymus gland. The thymus gland is where we hold our history.
And that to me, I relate that to powerlessness. So that would make sense. I didn't know it was related to Chiron. That's really interesting for me. So that would make sense, because if you felt powerless in that moment, in that shock and trauma in that moment, then that would make sense. Wow.
Well, that's interesting. That is very interesting, because on the Kabbalic tree of life, it relates to Darth. And when we get hit by moments of the past catching up with us, trauma, okay, blocks, we're doing something and then suddenly we're in shock. Now that shock ends up in our kidneys. So our kidneys are our batteries, and we've all felt this. We're in shock, we're scared, and boom.
Adrenals?
Well, adrenal is related to try and kind of fight or flight. So you know, the energy is there as an adrenal. You either stay and fight or you run. Then the depletion comes afterwards. And what I'm seeing at the moment, because there's so much fear around, there's a lot of depletion. I mean, and it will do this. It will pull on your energy. The other thing that pulls on the kidney energy is, and I know we're covering quite a lot of things here, but the other thing that does is your ancestors. So if your ancestors aren't happy with you, so you've got this thing within you as an incarnated human being. You've got your road in front of you you need to achieve. You've got the blocks held in your thymus of previous life trauma. And of course, you've got the pleasing of the ancestors. And some of your ancestors can be morons. They can be very frightened, ignorant people. So why should they hold you back? So you've got communication and education and all kinds of trust going back through your bloodline. And of course, they may want to hold you back because they've got to reincarnate and they don't want to land in what you've given them as a challenge.
So what do you think? So what do you think the answer is for people at the moment? You know, if we think about our energy and vibration, if they came and saw you, you could work really deeply with them, as I do as well, in different ways.
Yeah.
But if they were thinking about, you know, what they're putting into their body, obviously we know that it's really important to put water into our body and healthy foods and foods of a high vibration. That kind of goes without saying. What about other things that we put into our body?
Well, that's interesting because we are mainly, our pituitary gland is a window to the world. Okay, very much. But I came across some interesting build up of experience that had to have an outlet. And in that outlet, I created 3 apps. Okay. So it's very interesting because when you deal with energy, and you deal with energy a lot, it's like, how do you create something where people can have an opportunity to link with positive energies to release their blocks?
Yeah.
And whatever technology we're in, it's very interesting because we don't come from a place of judge. So we can sit and go, oh yeah, mobile phone technology, it's appalling, and radiation and da da da. Well, we designed the apps first of all to run where they don't need a SIM card, they don't need to connect, they are basically off grid. So you need Wi-Fi.
It's pretty unique, isn't it?
It's, well, you need the connection to download it. Once they're downloaded, you can switch them off and they will run. And the reason they work is I did buried deeply into what the energy source was, which is basically photon. And when we're looking at communication, we are all communication. So we're in an extraordinary time at the moment where actually what is going on is all about communication. We look at the RNA, for instance, it's communication. So this was building for me. And then I had a kind of breakthrough, and then a load of information downloaded how to make these apps. And even the programmer friend who was making them, I had to tell him what to do. He's very experienced. I've had no programming experience whatsoever. So these
You've
things,
been given this as a download of how these things work. Yeah,
comes in the way of. And so when I went into the protein side, so what proton side. So what we're looking at is light carrying information. So the apps, they don't use any of the traditional means in which people use signals, they use energy, they use radionics, things like that, radiomagnetic. They're a complete what people would call a quantum breakthrough.
Wow. So what are they called? Great.
So they come under the brand name Freeing Me. You can find Freeing Me. You can find them on freeing.me.
Say that again. The reception went for a second, so just say it again.
Okay, you can find them on the website freeing.me.
Okay, brilliant.
And they are 3 apps, one called Freeing Energy, one Freeing Stress, and one Freeing Rest. And even the Freeing Rest is actually changing a number of people's sleep patterns. People were not getting more than 2 or 3 hours sleep. Then now sleep is not an issue for them.
I think that's amazing. And I would imagine at the moment there are a lot of people that firstly are stressed,
yes,
not getting the sleep. And what was the other one?
And the other one was Freeing Energy. And what we find with the Freeing Energy one is it builds. So you use it and it builds, and people tend to look back and go, God, I did a lot more and I got a lot more done. In the acute way of using it, classically, you come home from work, you're exhausted, you've got an evening of an event planned, and you literally use the app and it picks you up. It takes you through the rest of the evening. The stress one, we've had brilliant results on the stress one. So many people are using it just to come out of their stress, and then again they find what they found really daunting in the day just goes away. Things like meetings, even, it can be work.
And people are online meeting at the moment, aren't they, constantly, and finding it really stressful, especially if you can't hear someone, or all that kind of stuff. And the internet, I don't know about you, but my internet all last week was rubbish. It's okay this week, which is good. But it was not very good. So that's frustrating in itself. So I would imagine that many people would find that really beneficial. You're also on Instagram, aren't you? And
I am on Instagram. Yeah, I'm on Facebook, and I'm on LinkedIn, all in a very small kind of way, but building, mainly around the apps, because I've never needed to go on these things before. The universe brings clients or whatever. I've never advertised. The other thing that I do is a course, and I've done this around the world, and the course is very much linked with removing blocks, but using the Western chakra system. I've had people turn up and go, I can't see anything. I don't, this doesn't work. And I've gone, it's okay. By the second weekend, you'll be fine. And I had a woman from New York, couldn't believe it. And it's just about setting things up in the right way with the right energy. It's exactly the same with the app.
Is that on your website?
That's on my website. So that's grahamemartin.com.
That's an easy one, Grahame Martin.
That is a very easy one to know.
And this will all be in the notes. So if you guys want to find out any of this and you didn't catch it in this interview, then you can find it on the notes after this show. So you'll see them in the show notes. Okay, so don't worry if you didn't catch it. It'll all be there. So don't worry. So they sound amazing. So people can definitely get in contact with you there. I'm just thinking there's something that I'd really like to ask you that's quite dear to my heart, is when perhaps people have had some toxicity throughout their whole life, maybe as children they've had lots of antibiotics, or they've had vaccines and things like that, pre what we're talking about in the world now. What is this something that you find vibrationally, because if we can look at ourselves as light and energy, would you say that is something that it's really helpful not to have in our bodies now? Would you say? How would you talk about that?
These things can leave blocks.
They can leave blocks.
They can leave blocks. They can get into our body, and on an alchemic level, they can create toxicity.
Yeah. Okay.
So you're dealing with some form of detox. There's plenty of ways to detox. There's lots of ways in which homeopathy can also do at that level. We've had herb detox. I spent some time with the Bushmen down in Africa, and they, in Namibia especially, they've done a lot of, they've done thousands of years of developing plant medicines to clear out all kinds of things.
Are you talking about ayahuasca, or are you talking?
No, I'm not. I'm talking about just they're nomadic. So they're not now, but they were. And so they've had to recognize the plants that just keep them going in their own plant medicine.
Wow. So that is nature. That's Mother Earth.
Well, unfortunately, that this knowledge gets synthesized by modern pharmaceuticals, and you know, the question then comes up about who owns this information. So there's a lot of exploitation that goes on, but on a kind of basic alchemical level, you've got nature does provide ways of clearing an awful lot. Antibiotics can be difficult because they can, and we've systematically banned a lot of them as the years have gone on.
I had so many of those. Honestly, I know you know this in my story, but I had so many as a child. I mean, my energy is pretty clear now, but I had so many, you know, as a child. I had continual throat infections, continually, and really bad ones. And so I was constantly given antibiotics. So imagine what that did to my bowel flora, you know, my digestive system, all those.
We inherit, as we come through the bloodline, the quality of our parents' blood unfortunately makes ours, especially in mother's blood. And you don't really have your own blood for the first couple of days until you start producing your own blood cells. Within that comes information, because information's in your cells, quality. So at the end of the day, it all boils down to the information you put in your body. Now, if we talk about antibiotics, antibiotics is still information. It's everything that goes in. When we
code, is it, you know, if we look at it as, it's kind of what I'm getting intuitionally as the guides are here, just like, is it like a code, like you're almost putting like a vibrational code into your body? Yeah,
your cells. So basically your cells receive information through proteins. So your body is, look, your body, this works on a subatomic level. Okay, so what we're dealing with, and even what's going on in the world at the moment, all this is on a subatomic level. So
can you explain that you know, perhaps for people that don't understand that?
Yeah, we're dealing with information. Information works on the atomic level because we are essentially atomic beings. We work around the atom and then subsequently the molecule. So if we take your blood, for instance, your blood's going around your system with particles within it that are so tiny that they should just leach through your veins and your skin. So in fact, you would bleed them out. You don't do that because there's energetic cycles all gluing it together. In quantum physics, they call it the quantum web. In spiritual thinking, it's called the etheric web. So what happens is when we incarnate into this world, there's an energy, an etheric energy that basically is a plan. It glues us all together. When we die, that energy stays here. We leave it. Now, what bolts onto that etheric, it's like the invisible man kind of stuff. You know, you take away the matter and you can't see anything, but the framework is still there. The man's still talking. You remember those old 50 films?
Yeah.
So, you know, it all in science fiction, all this stuff usually comes.
I remember watching them when I was much younger.
we're both of us are far too young to remember.
Just a note there.
Yeah. We saw the videos.
Yeah, we saw the videos.
So basically on that kind of etheric level, that energy, that what belongs to the earth, and we join it, and we join that energy, and then matter is attached to it.
Yeah.
Okay, so everything works on this subatomic level. So when we talk about viruses and other things, what we're really talking about is very minute pieces of information. And I mean really, really minute.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not going to get into the politics and masks and everything else, but what I will say is we are within a communication. So if you take the photon within that, which is one piece of the function and the build of the atom, photon communication. If I go off to Australia, having had this conversation with you, our photons will still be communicating.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we on that web, no real time or space, and we know this within the photon. The photons do not apply themselves to time or space, but because of sunlight and who we are, they're the backbone of every part of our existence.
Yeah.
So with us as human beings, we have cells wherever we are in the body interacting with particular parts of information, and we're only reacting and interacting with information, our environment. So even our skin cells are like little brains with kind of backbones going inwards, put in little spines. And you know that about
So what happens, just sorry to interrupt you, I'm just thinking for people listening to this.
Yeah, we don't lose.
Sometimes we can get a little bit sciencey, but I'm just thinking of, so if you're listening to this and, you know, in the past, like I did, you know, we had all of our jabs, let's call them, and I had antibiotics and probably, you know, many other things as well in my life, which I've cleared out of my system. So my system is pretty vibrationally clear.
Yeah.
What would you say to people about what they are putting into their bodies now, in the sense of, I like to call it energy and vibration? What can we help people with there?
Well, it all comes down to
make
the blocks.
choices, but to understand.
Well, so we've got a task. Each and every one of us has got a task. The biggest thing that people have always come to see me with is, I don't know what I'm here to do.
Wow.
Okay. And you can have heavy pathology and all kinds of cancer and various other things around that. When you break it down, that's really what lies underneath. And you can have parental trauma, you can have all kinds of trauma. It's all stopping the person from being what they've come here to shine their light.
I totally get that. That's exactly what I see as well. So as soon as you almost like, and what the guys are showing me is, it's almost as if you step out of the old jacket that you had on, and this light of you steps out. You shed off all of that, maybe toxicity and belief systems that you thought were you, but were not you. And then you start waking up to, oh, that's always been in my heart. I've always known that. I've always loved animals. I've always loved working with people. And now that spark of light comes in, you know, and that's the journey, isn't it? So is it on many levels? Would you say physical toxicity, emotional toxicity? Yeah.
Mental and spiritual, the blocks, anything that's stopping you from being who you need to be, who you're destined, whatever's given to you, each individual has to work out for them what's blocking them. It usually is a number of things. So where people have to go back to, trauma has an etiology in this life, and it does in every other life, but things are interlinked. Things that have happened to you in your past, you can carry on to sort out here. So if you keep getting a repeated pattern and a picture, the biggest thing that's the sign to all this is people who don't feel they're good enough. And all of us, I mean, I've met gurus, etc., and every person is suffering from this. We all are trying to get on to our highest vibration. When we do, obviously, we don't need to incarnate anymore. So we're all in this process of, you know, what quality food, what quality water, which is massively important. The ingredients in water is quite frightening, and apparently that's healthy water. We've got all kinds of toxins. We've got all kinds of things that we either don't know enough about, but we allow to get put into our bodies. And then therefore, are we in an experiment? When do we find out? What is the consequence of what we put into ourselves? Where do we judge that? Do we go into a science book, or do we go to the higher planes and get whatever information we know that's going to tell us the consequence of our actions? Because that's what it comes down to, the consequence of our actions.
I have a free video course I haven't told you about. Actually, it's just launched actually this week or last week, and it's called Awaken the Light Within. And the reason why I created it was so that people could come into that place, you know, without me. You know, I'm just on the video and I take them through the processes, but to actually come into that place of make that choice. Because I think whenever we make a choice, and I hear where you're going with this as well, when we make a choice about something, where are we making that choice from? Are we making it from fear, which is never a good thing? Are we making it because someone told us to make it? That's also never a good thing. But when we make it from that place of clarity, or at least for a few seconds of coming into that heart space, there's more chance that that decision will be from heart, do you think? Rather than a decision that's made in our head or outside of us. And so that's why I created that video course, and there'll be a link to this at the end of this podcast as well, if anyone's interested. But if you come into your heart or come into your inner part of you, find that light within. Usually, yes, we've got traumas, yes, we've got other stuff, yes, we've got busy stuff going on, kids at home, all of that. But even if we're in the bathroom, you know, for 1 minute, and you just say, okay, I'm just going to listen. Does this feel like a right thing for me? Does this feel like the thing to do? Or does this make me feel a little bit of a feeling of uncomfortableness, and maybe I should do it? And whenever I think should happens, I am never keen on the shoulds, you know. It's almost like you're shoulding on yourself, and that's never your voice, I don't think. I think it's might be your parents' voice, could be your parents' voice, could be something you've seen on the television, could be something that your neighbor told you. I never believe that's the option for you, always to come within. And I think if you're listening to this, you gather where we're going with this in a language that is not speaking about the actual thing. And I know you get that. I know that you're smart. I know you're listening to this, and I know you get it. So when you make your decisions, come from that place, even if it's just a couple of seconds, come from that place of just, is this right for me? Does my body need this? Does my body need this? Does it need this? You know, what is it that my body is telling me that it needs?
And also, you've got to think about what's closing my crown down. If you're gonna really be a fundamental human being here, then you've got to have a crown open and connected. The crown center, we know what it closes down. We know what happens when it is closed down. I mean, you look at alcoholism, you have a loss of connection. All these things are just bog standard. Now, you know, if I go in to my local town centre, get a box and start shouting about how important the crown centre is, perhaps I won't get too far. But we use everyday language about how well connected we are and how we feel, you know, a sense of the light coming into us. And, you know, and where you're absolutely right, it all ends up in the heart. It filters through the brain or the brow in order for us to get enlightenment from it. We don't know. The wonderful thing about being human, and you'd be absolutely astonished how many people have a problem with this, and most people do, in my experience. We do not know. We know what's coming onto the astral plane. We can tune into that. We know what's coming for us. Well, we don't know the outcome. And
but we so do know the outcome. Like this is the thing, isn't it? In life, you know, it's like get excited about something. You're like, I wonder what's going to happen. I wonder what's going to happen. But that's the trust, isn't it? That's the true being in the present moment, being in the trust, being, you know, in that space where you're following your true, I call it mission, but your true knowing that whatever you are doing is, you know, that it's coming from your heart, and you know that you're standing in your power, and you're feeling that sense of, I'm making this choice because I feel this is right for me.
And that's what we're standing up to prevent that being eroded, because life is a celebration. It's a hugely positive experience. And if we're all held within this amazing light of potential and opportunity, then the outcome can only be good. We are so frightened of that. We've been made to look. Now there's a bounce back, because, you know, we're saying, no, we're not going to be frightened of that. And why should we lose that? Because it's the whole point of being here. It's the whole point of life. You know, it's a phenomenally amazing experience when you bring something from the non-physical into the physical down here, and you make it work. I did that with those apps. You know, I'm sure there's going to be lots of people that are going to question it and going, no, that can't work. Well, okay, doesn't work for you, whatever. But the point is it's still a process of putting a seed in the ground and growing the new. And where does that seed come from? It comes from the non-physical. And this is hugely exciting for all of us to bring in the new.
And it opens the doors. What I'm feeling about that as well is that, you know, maybe if you did the app, what it would do, vibration, is open the door for you. So because it's shifting something within you, then you've got the space. Does that feel right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I love about them. They're not really addictive because they're based around moving you forward. So they build and build. Then they're not like radionics. They don't work like you get it while the signal's working, you're feeling okay. Well, what happens when you switch the signal off? You know, the whole point of healing and clearing and growing and growth is to go to a place where you are able to take your life on. You're being brave, you can go, it just feels right. And that is elimination of fear.
I love that feeling, you know, and I you can see I'm animated in the way that I talk about things, because when you truly feel that sense of freedom, and I'm homeschooling kids at the moment, you know, it's a bit of a drama, but truly within, I know you are as well, because our friends are friends, our children are friends, by the way, but you still have this, you know, I still have this feeling of joy within, and not 24/7, right? I don't feel like excited 24/7.
Sure.
But I have this joy within, because I know that where I am in the world and what I'm doing in the world is truly, truly who I'm meant to be. I have no idea next year. I have a few plans, but I have no idea what's going to happen next year. But I don't have any concerns about that, because I don't have fear. So if you're listening to this and you feel, oh my God, well, I'm worried what might happen at the end of the year, and I'm worried about this, then just think for a second, you know, what is it that's driving that fear? And it's possible, and this is something that I say to my clients, is that maybe just turn the telly off, you know, just turn the TV off, turn the mainstream off just for a day. and just see how you feel. Because it might be that just by turning that off and listening to your own narrative might be more healthy for you than listening to another's narrative. It's just an open.
No, I think you're absolutely right. What has to counter whenever I'm using the word blocks when people come to see me, that's easy language.
Yeah.
But fundamentally, they have lost a sense of their own power. We are given gifts to do what we are here to do, and if we can't do that, we're losing either the sense of our own power or our own power. You talk about keeping your vibration, well, your vibration is also the energy that gives you your day of work. We live in the physical realm. You know, you stare at a mountain. If you want to climb that mountain, don't kid yourself, it's going to be a piece of cake, because physicality has restrictions and we're working within that. But if you've got a task to do, you're given the power. And we are surrounded by a lot of information, and I dread to think what we're sending in the way of messages to our children, because they're just so disempowering people. And that drains us, drains our kidneys, because you know, self-belief is hugely important. It's an energy in its own right. As I said, we live in a quantum world. We live in a subatomic world, and it's information, and information is light, and light begins with, I can do that. Now, if you tell a child you can't, we're looking at a huge amount of trouble.
I know, I can see it. I mean, our children are very lucky on lots of levels, because they're not, you know, they've been brought up in a very different way, where consciousness is part of language. You know, we don't say, oh, my children know how to manifest, they know how to create something. Yeah, they have their moments, and definitely my daughter's had her moments, as you very well know, but she's lifted, you know, she's obviously, ours aren't in mainstream, so they're not in this mainstream situation where they're following the rules, which I jumped for joy this morning when I found out some different things about our children going back. You know, I was like, yay, this is really good, and we also don't have to do that. Amazing. So our children have got a lot more freedom, and we're very blessed to live by the sea, and you know, we have all these amazing environments. But the children that are friends of our children and other children around, I'm watching them, you know, and I'm watching them say, oh, well, we just have to do that, you know, and perhaps they've got to put things in their body that they perhaps wouldn't have chosen to put in their body, but because they're children, they are being told, you know, as if they're parents and people in authority. You know, I don't know what our next generation will be. I have no idea, but I just hold the space that we awaken, that more people awaken to the light, literally, and start to bring their power back and really listen to their own soul's consciousness and narrative. And that's all we can do, you know, as ones that are a little bit awake, you know, we kind of a little bit awake, we kind of know who we are, we kind of do the job we were meant to do, you know, we're playing at it all the time, you know, and having fun, and we're always learning, right? We're always expanding, always growing, always learning. I think that's what it's about, isn't it? Just holding that space for people, not telling people what to do. That's so key. You know, I hate that. I hate it when I hear it, even from people that are therapists or, you know, telling people what to do. No, don't tell people what to do.
But the beauty of this is, no matter how many books you burn, no matter how many sites you bring down, information is free and is coming from the non-physical, is coming from the higher planes, is all there, it's always available. So it depends how you want to receive it, but it can never be removed. It's there. We have an astral plane. I always call it laughingly the library in the sky.
Yeah.
Full
The
of
living
files.
library, I call it.
Yeah, files and files and files. All that information is there. So it doesn't really matter. Our children will always find ways through into their conscious development. I strongly believe that. And I think, the positive message is you cannot shut human beings down. And they will find ways to clear the blocks. They will find ways to get their power back. And it's not on a group level. Sometimes it is, but it's on an individual level.
Yeah.
And individual choice is the most powerful thing that a human being has.
Yeah.
And
I don't think anything, right?
I don't think we have to fight for it. I think it's impossible. Some people will argue this, well, it got lost then, it got lost. Maybe it did, but it resurrected itself time and time again in greater ways of protection.
It's stronger now. I honestly think it's stronger. I think the light is stronger. I think the help we have from the higher realms is stronger. I think we're guided to, really expand in a much better way than we ever done before. And it's our choice, it's a great awakening.
Yeah, it's our given right. And, whatever information I think is relevant, I think is relevant. It's if we sit solely on physical proof, we've got an awful lot of work to do to investigate the dynamics and the energies involved with being a physical human being within this universe. And until someone can lay all that on my lap, I'm going to continue to investigate it myself. And what comes of that is what I'm here to do.
I don't believe anyone. I'm like, and people go, well, I'm not sure I believe what you do. And I'm like, that's great, actually. I'd rather you not believe what I do, because what I do is who I am and you believe who you are. Yeah. So I don't, it has to feel right to me. It has to resonate to me. It has to. So if you're listening to this and you feel resonance with Grahame or me, whoever you feel resonance with, reach out to us, because our door is open, okay? We love to connect with you. And I really feel now we need to kind of wrap this up. This is one of my longest, most favorites, if that's a word, conversations that I've had in a long time. And I did.
You won't invite me back. I speak to.
I would love to have you back. I would love to have you back. Yeah, because I definitely feel like this conversation is heads up my new series, where I really wanted to talk to people that get it. I really want to talk to people that get what's going on in the world as I do. And I just wanted to open this conversation for people in a safe way, where you can listen without being censored, without, not being able to hear the beauty of a symbiotic relationship, of talking about what's going on in the world, what's going on in our internal world, and how we can perhaps just expand a little bit more. So, Grahame, have you got any last words that you would like to say before I wrap it up?
Well, I think at the moment, I'd just like to say to everyone who's listening to this, look at what you bring to the table and honor it. Everyone has got gifts, and just honor it and begin that process, and you'll be amazed. It is literally like watering a garden, and it grows.
Watering a garden. Yeah. So imagine yourself as a little flower, and you're being watered, and you're growing and growing and growing and blossoming out in the world with your true gift. Thanks so much, Grahame. I had such a great time. Thank you for being on The Spiritual Awakener.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It's been wonderful.
So if you have a spiritual awakening story, or you have something really cool you want to share with my audience, please contact me at susankennard.co.uk, and I'll see you on the next episode of The Spiritual Awakener. Much love for now.